Theme 3. Legendary figure. Page 41. 3. Listen to the story of King Arthur and complete the sentences.
Once upon a time, there was an English king, King Uther. He had a son named Arthur. King Uther had dangerous days then because Saxons were attacking his land. So King Uther gave his son to his magician Merlin to keep him safe. Merlin sent Arthur to the countryside with his foster brother Kay. While Arthur was living with Kay, Merlin always helped him. Arthur never knew his real parents. When King Uther died, no one knew he had a son. Many people argued about the next king. Suddenly, a mysterious stone appeared in the garden of St. Paul's Cathedral in London. There was a message on it. It said, "If anyone can pull the sword out, he will be the King of Britain." Years later, when Arthur was 15 years old, his foster brother Kay had his first knight's tournament. The family went to London. Kay forgot to take his sword, so Arthur went to look for one. He found a sword in the stone and took it out easily. When people saw the sword, they recognized it and asked, "Who pulled the sword out?" Merlin said. Arthur pulled the sword out. He is a son of King Uther and Queen Igraine. I myself took the baby because the king's enemies wanted to kill the child. At first, no one believed that, but later Arthur became the king. When he became the king, first he founded his kingdom. Then he won all the wars with his magic sword named Excalibur. Finally, he worked with a special group of knights, and they tried to solve the problems fairly.
Theme 3. Page 45. 11. Listen to the story of Nene Hatun and put the events in the correct order. Nene Hatun was one of the bravest women in Turkish history. She became famous for fighting against Russian forces in Erzurum during the Russo-Turkish War of 1877 to 1878. Nene Hatun was living in Aziziye in Erzurum then. Nene Hatun's brother, Hasan, got wounded in that war and died on the night of the 7th of November 1877. The Russian army captured Fort Aziziye 2 days later. When Nene Hatun heard this, she first kissed her dead brother's head and then took his bayonet. She said, "I will take your revenge, brother." She left home while her 3-month-old baby girl and little son were sleeping and went to the battlefield. Mostly women and elderly people were fighting there because Russians had killed almost all of the Turkish soldiers. These people didn't have guns. They had only farming tools and stones. Nene Hatun was holding her dead brother's bayonet in her hand. They all attacked the enemy bravely to get Fort Aziziye back because Fort Aziziye was very important for them. Russians killed hundreds of Turkish civilians again, but Turks were very crowded and brave, so they managed to break down the iron doors of Fort Aziziye. Finally, they entered Fort Aziziye and Russians left the area. It was impossible to see the battlefield because of fire, smoke, dust and blood. Dead bodies were lying around. When they found Nene Hatun, she was wounded and unconscious. Her hands were bloody and still holding her brother's bayonet. Nene Hatun lived the rest of her life in Aziziye, but she had a difficult life. First, she lost her husband. Then, Her son Yusuf died in World War I while he was fighting during the Battle of Gallipoli. Nene Hatun died in 1955 when she was 98. Her grave is in the Martyrs Cemetery at Fort Aziziye. She will always be a symbol of bravery. Theme 3. Page 47. 16. Listen and repeat the words in Part A. Read the words in Part B yourself and write the sounds as id, t or d. Then listen and check your pronunciation. Part A. Id, wanted, needed, decided, started. T, laughed, walked, kissed, finished. D, cleaned, saved, enjoyed, married.
Part B. Invited, packed, counted, killed, hated, showed, arrived, visited, used, looked, changed, travelled, murdered, rented, appeared.
Theme 3. Page 51. 23. Listen to the text and answer. What did Khoja Yusuf do while the transatlantic was sinking?
Khoja Yusuf was one of the legendary names of wrestling. People gave him the name Khoja, big, with his 154-kilogram body, wrestling skills, strength and morality. He beat almost all important wrestlers of the time. He went to Europe and learnt the rules of mat wrestling. He won all the competitions in the USA. They called him the Terrible Turk. Khoja Yusuf set off with a transatlantic ticket to return back to Turkey. While the ship was sailing, it collided with a cargo ship and sank. All the passengers were trying to swim in panic and get onto a lifeboat. Khoja Yusuf was also trying to get onto a lifeboat, but other passengers didn't want him to be on the lifeboat because he was too heavy. When a passenger on the boat started hitting him with sticks, another passenger cut Khoja Yusuf's hand with an axe. Khoja Yusuf was drowned with all the passengers and crew.